I've been talking for a while on this channel about how free agency is dead in today's NBA, and I never really agreed with the Heat's master plan, if you can even call it that, to save cap space for 2026. Because, of course, the pipe dream for next offseason that we were all hoping for was Luka Doncic. And y'all know me, I try to be optimistic at times, and I'm a guy who likes to have some fun, maybe try to justify why something that will never happen might just happen. So I'm sitting here thinking, hey, maybe Luka won't stay with the Lakers, right? I mean, why would he want to stay on a team that has an aging LeBron James who is ready to retire soon? Although this season, I did see that FanDuel has the Lakers with the 7th best odds to win the championship at plus 1,700. I don't necessarily agree with that because I don't think the Lakers will be a great team. I think they're a little bit too top heavy and not really a way to get out of that. So I could have seen Luka not wanting to sign that extension with them. And I could have seen him saying, hey, I'll come to Miami. Another nice big city. You know, the Heat still have a good relationship with Goran Dragic. They could have hired him in some sort of front office role. And we all know how close Luka and Goran are. Goran was literally Luka's mentor since he was a child. So I could have seen it happen. You know, I was trying to be optimistic and say, hey, dreams can come true. Well, let me teach y'all a lesson, especially to the kids that may be watching this video. Dreams do not come true. Never. Especially if you're a Miami Heat fan, because yesterday it was announced that Luka Doncic did indeed sign an extension with the Lakers. It was a 3-year, $165 million extension, which only comes to about $55 million a year, which doesn't sound like that much in terms of NBA money when you think about guys like Shea and Jaylen Brown getting like 70 plus millions a year. But I guess that has to do with the whole Supermax thing and being traded, although Shea was traded. So I don't know how it works, but Luka's getting $55 million a year. Good for him. And of course, that means that the Luka to Miami dream is officially dead. So now that the Luka dream is dead, that begs the question, what is next for the Miami Heat, particularly when it comes to 2026 free agency? So what I did is I pulled up the list of free agents for next offseason. You could see that there's some interesting names here, but most of them do have player options, meaning that they may not actually be free agents until 2027. The one guy that I am really interested in here is Trae Young. I kind of always thought his fit with the Miami Heat would be pretty good, but we know the Hawks made some pretty nice additions this offseason, and it remains to be seen how successful a year they will have. Because if they are better, like we kind of expect them to be, I do think Trae Young will opt into that player option or either opt out and re-sign for more money with the Hawks. I just don't really think he'll be available. So what I did is I ended up filtering out all the guys with player options or team options, and I just wanted to look at the guys who will definitely be free agents next offseason as it stands right now. And if you look at the list, you see LeBron, you see Kevin Durant, you got De'Aaron Fox, and then there is a huge drop-off into a couple of unks like CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, and I'm really not interested in any of the other guys that are below him. So started from the top, I mean, LeBron's been rumored about the Miami Heat. Maybe he'll get traded. Maybe he'll sign somewhere else next offseason, but we've talked about him at length. Of course, you're not in on Kevin Durant after you weren't able to trade for him. I'm sure he'll sign an extension with the Rockets very soon. But then you have De'Aaron Fox, someone who definitely does catch my mind, as he does for a lot of Heat fans, and he has for quite a long time. Of course, he's a good player. He's at a position of need. He can be that true point guard, and he's very close with Bam Adebayo. Of course, those guys went to Kentucky together. So we've talked about Fox before on this channel. The last time that he had a video dedicated to him was actually 6 months ago now, and that was in a video I titled, De'Aaron Fox Trade Now Happening Soon. Miami Heat and Spurs listed as suitors. So that was a pretty good call by me because Fox did end up getting traded pretty soon, and we all know that he went to the Spurs. And also, what I actually said in that video was pretty true as well. But that's just the reality of the situation. Like Luka Doncic waiting for him to enter free agency, that's just a pipe dream. So of course I was right. Every single thing I said in that video was right because I'm never wrong about anything. The Mavericks will throw the super max. They're going to make up a super max just to make sure Luka Doncic does not walk out of that building. Okay, maybe I was wrong about some things, but can you blame me? Who the hell thought Luka was ever going to leave the Mavericks? I couldn't have predicted that Nico Harrison would be a bigger bum than Joe Cronin. But also that maybe wasn't the only wrong thing I said in that video, because I did also say this. Even a guy like De'Aaron Fox, okay, he doesn't want to sign an extension right now, but the Kings will trade him. Somebody will trade for him, and that team more than likely will then be able to sign him to an extension. So yes, Fox did get traded, but as of today, he is extension eligible, and that still hasn't happened yet. Now, it very well could happen later today. It could happen 30 seconds from now while I'm recording this video, meaning this entire thing would be irrelevant, but I'm not so sure that's actually going to happen. Because earlier this week, NBA cap expert Bobby Marks wrote a very interesting article on why the Spurs should be cautious when signing De'Aaron Fox to a max contract extension. He writes that Fox is eligible for a 4-year extension, similar to Luka Doncic, where he'd be getting between $49 and $51 million per year starting in the 2026 season. That season is also the last year of Wembanyama's rookie contract before he'll make his max money the following season in 2027. That means that starting in 2027 through at least 2030, the Spurs would have 2 max players under contract. Also during that time frame, they would have to account for some likely pretty big extensions for Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper too. So what Bobby Marks questions is whether Fox is really worth that max contract and the financial burden that he would put on the Spurs. Bobby Marks doesn't seem to think so. He seems to be a bit hesitant, but honestly, I think Fox is worth that money. To me, a max player is someone who can be productive on both sides of the ball, both offensively and defensively, and De'Aaron Fox is that. We know he's a very capable scorer, but he's also an elite point of attack defender and plays very well on the perimeter. I also believe that a max player should be able to perform in the postseason. And while, yes, De'Aaron Fox has only made the postseason one time, he lost in 7 games to the Golden State Warriors back in 2023. But in those 7 games, he did average a very impressive 27 points per game, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. One of the things that Bobby Marks pointed out is that in the regular season last year, Fox had a big drop-off in production after he was traded to the Spurs, because with the Kings, he averaged about 25 a night, and that went all the way down to under 20 with the Spurs. But I look at it like, hey, he played 17 injury-riddled games after he was traded to the Spurs, in which he was trying to learn a brand new system after being with the Kings for the first 7 years of his career, so I can't really blame him for the decrease in production. What I like to look at is the full season prior in 2023-24, where he had a very impressive 26 points per game, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, literally led the league in steals with 2 a night, and then did all of that while shooting a very efficient 47% from the field and 37% from 3 on 8 attempts. That is just great 3-point shooting from De'Aaron Fox the year prior from when he was traded. Admittedly, that 3-point shooting does seem like a little bit of an outlier, because the year prior, he shot 32% from 3, and then the year after, which was last season, he shot 31% from 3. So Fox probably isn't as good a 3-point shooter as the 37% on high volume, but I don't think he'll consistently shoot as bad as 31% either, because he's still a young player. He's still improving and working on that jump shot. So I could see him one day consistently shooting around 35% from 3 on high volume, or maybe be in the high 30s, but on lower volume. Either one of those efficiencies is fine with me, because he still has many years left of elite rim penetration, rim finishing, playmaking, and defense. So I'm good if he can just be average at best at 3-point shooting. Now, in my video 6 months ago, this is the trade package that I cooked up, where the Miami Heat got De'Aaron Fox, Luke Kennard, and John Conchar. The Kings got Marcus Smart, Brandon Clark, Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, Jalen Wells, and 3 first-round picks. That was 1 from Memphis and 2 from the Heat. And then the Memphis Grizzlies ended up getting Jimmy Butler. Of course, this trade is completely irrelevant now, because Marcus Smart's on a different team, and so is Kennard and Jimmy Butler, and guys have went all over the place in different places. But I don't think this was a bad package for the Kings at the time, and I still don't think it is. because in hindsight, what the Kings actually ended up getting was Zach LaVine and 3 first-round picks. So I think I did a pretty decent job projecting what De'Aaron Fox's trade value was 6 months ago. So now this is the trade that I cooked up, where the Miami Heat received De'Aaron Fox and send over to the Spurs Terry Rozier's expiring contract, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez, 3 second-round picks, and 2 first-round picks. Now, I'll admit this isn't some great, amazing value that the Spurs are getting for De'Aaron Fox. But remember, he's an impending free agent, meaning that he could walk next offseason. So any team that's trading for him is going to be hesitant to give up all their assets because it could all be for nothing in just a year. Now, that's the case for any good player who's on the last year of his deal. But for a bad player like Terry Rozier, his expiring contract does actually have some value to the Spurs because they can offload his $26 million by next offseason. And it is beneficial to the Spurs to not have to take on any long-term money for Fox's $37 million deal. Although even that's not entirely true because Nikola Jovic is extension eligible. So there's a bit of a question there on what his number will actually be. But I don't think at this point it's going to be some super high, exorbitant number. I don't even think it'll be more than $12 to $15 million a year. Like, that's what it'll be on the high end. And I do think that that's something that the Spurs can't afford to do. And Jaime Jaquez still has a couple of years left on his cheap rookie deal. So both those guys are pretty team friendly right now in terms of their contracts. But I also think their on-court fit would be really nice. And of course, age-wise, they kind of fit the Spurs timeline as part of their rebuild right now. You got Wembanyama at center. You got a couple of guards and Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper. So I think Jaime at the 3 and particularly Jovic at the 4 could work very, very well for the Spurs. Should point out they did draft Carter Bryant, who could play the 3 or 4, but we know he's more of a defensive guy, an elite defensive guy, which is the opposite of what Jaime and Jovic do. So I do think he can kind of complement them very nicely too. As far as the draft capital return, I don't think it's that bad for the Spurs. They did initially send out 4 first-round picks when they acquired De'Aaron Fox, 3 of them to the Kings, 1 of them to the Bulls, and they also sent out 3 second-round picks. So at least in this deal, they are getting those 3 second-round picks back, but they are only getting 2 of the 4 first-round picks. But it just is what it is at that point. When you try to trade a guy that you just traded for a year ago, that's usually not an appreciating asset. You're usually not going to recoup everything that you sent out because De'Aaron Fox is an expiring contract. So they are still getting most of their value back, in addition to the 2 young pieces and Jaime and Jovic, who you could maybe argue that together they have the value as a first-round pick. So it's not that bad a trade for the San Antonio Spurs. From the Heat perspective, you're losing Terry Rozier, who we're all hoping wasn't going to play anyways. You're losing Jaime Jaquez, who I still like, and I think he can have a bounce-back season, but I'm just not sure how big a role he's actually going to have. And then you are losing Nikola Jovic, who, of course, I like, but we're talking about getting rid of 1 rotation piece for De'Aaron Fox. The Heat could now field a starting lineup of Fox, Hero, Wiggins, Bam, and Ware, with Davion and Powell as your backup guards. You'd still have Haywood and Pelle Larsson coming off the bench. I mean, we're talking about a team in the East. Am I crazy to think that they could be one of the best teams in the entire conference? Am I crazy to think that? Of course, we would still have the glaring issue of a backup center. Jovic was really only our backup big on the entire team, and even he's not big, but now he'd be gone too. So the Heat would definitely need to find someone in that role if they wanted to be a true contender. Unless Vlad Golden is ready to step in. I'm not so sure just yet, but maybe they could find a big later in the season, whether it's via buyouts or at the trade deadline. Maybe they flip Andrew Wiggins for one. But I do think if they get a backup center, you're talking about a team that could really make a deep playoff run in the East. Because even think about one of our other glaring weaknesses last year. It was our 4th quarter scoring. It was our clutch offense. And De'Aaron Fox continues to be one of the most clutch players in the entire NBA. He actually won Clutch Player of the Year in 2023. And this season, FanDuel has him at the 7th best odds to do it again at plus 1,500. So he's very clearly a guy that's an excellent 4th quarter scorer, and I think his ability to get easy baskets and get to the rim could be huge for the Miami Heat down the stretch. But that's all I got to say for this video. Let me know y'all thoughts down below. Make sure to comment if you want De'Aaron Fox, if you like this trade. What do you think is the most you'd give up for him? I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. Also, make sure to like the video and subscribe because I'm on the grind to hit 9,000 subs. And I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.